everybody, and welcome to Win, Championship Traits for Life, a show focused on strengthening the mental fitness of athletes, coaches, and anyone and everyone that works within a team environment on any level. I'm Lee Elias, that's JB Spizo, and we are joined today by legendary Hall of Fame rider Mike Smith. Mike has been one of the leading riders in U.S. thoroughbred racing since the early 1990s and was inducted into the National Museum of Racing Hall of Fame in 2003. He has a record 26 Breeders' Cup wins and 10 American Classic wins, including the Triple Crown in 2018, where he rode Justify at the age of 52. If that was not enough, in 2019, Mike took over the top spot of Grade 1 wins by a jockey with 217. The term GOAT does apply here, and we are privileged to have him with us today. Mike, welcome to Win.
Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
No, really, the privilege and the honor are all ours. I mean, you're one of the greatest of all time at what you do. You probably are the greatest of all time. And, you know, Mike, I want to start with this. We talked about this before the show. We like to ask kind of questions that you don't normally get asked. So, look, the Triple Crown is one of the most elusive accomplishments in sports, right? It comes with a lot of glory, fame, and coverage. And I'm sure you've been interviewed about that an immense amount of times. But what I'm sure most people don't see is the years of work, the pain, the sacrifice that's needed to be made by really multiple people to even make a moment like that possible. So could you take us back to the beginning of how you got started in the sport and how it shaped you as a human being?
Well, I've been riding so long. I've been blessed to be riding so long. It's going to be a long story.
We have the time.
Going on 40 years here next year. You know, I'm from a little town back in New Mexico, little town called Dexter, New Mexico, and was raised on a ranch. My grandparents had, of course, you name it, every farm animal you can think of. But we were blessed to have racehorses on our property as well, which was quarter horses at the time. And my uncle trained horses, helped break them and get them ready to send off to racetracks and like training facilities. And so it was all there. To be honest with you, I wanted to be a linebacker and play football. I was kind of athletic, and I tried every sport there was in school, and wanted to really play football, but never grew, much taller than the water bucket. But luckily, I had a passion for horses, and I had a love for horses, and they were right there in my backyard, and one thing led to the other, and before you knew it, I was helping my uncle out in the mornings and learning a whole lot. And I remember watching Secretariat win the Kentucky Derby on TV and thinking, wow, that's what I want to do. And actually truly believing that I was going to win that race someday. And of course, watch him go on through the Triple Crown and win it, and thought, well, I'll do that too. Let's do a couple of those, man. And I did, I was reaching for the stars at a very young age. And when you're blessed enough to do something that you have a passion for, it never seems to be work. You're just having a good time along the ways. The tough times don't come, really didn't come for me till later on in the sport, where you have your ups and downs. You go through injuries, and the games are very, it's a big game, and there's a lot of money involved, and a lot of changes are made a lot of times. And next thing you know, you're off one, on one, and so you got to learn to handle a whole lot of ups and downs in this sport. But, you just work your way through them, and little by little. I mean, it took until I was 52 to finally get my Triple Crown, but we were finally blessed enough to get it done.
I'll tell you real quick, Mike, our producer, Caitlin, always says thoughts become things. And something I've noticed in a lot of top performers that we speak to, are like amazing people such as yourself, is what you said about at a young age, I had this belief that I was going to do something. I saw this and I decided I was going to do it. And I think the truth is, within athletics, we hear a lot of parents, we hear a lot of people say, well, you'll never do that. You'll never make it to that. That's impossible. Right. And really everyone, and JB, you can tap on this too. Everyone we've interviewed is saying, no, I just had this goal and no one was going to get in my way. And I decided to do it. And like I said, in your case, you might have been 52 when it happened, but it happened. Right. And I just am a big believer in that thoughts become things kind of moniker. And again, to our audience, if you have a dream, don't let anyone tell you you can't accomplish your dream. And I think I said this before, JB, my father always used to say, nobody has to support your dream, but they have to support your right to have a dream. All right. And we shouldn't suppress that. Mike, you emulate that. JB, I totally cut you off by talking. I apologize.
No, absolutely. And you see, Mike, sometimes we put these unrealistic timelines about our life, and then Mike, you stayed after it. And 52 years old, you're the best. Mike, I just want to tell you, you are the greatest of all time at this, and I'm so honored to just see you and speak with you right now. So thank you so much for that. And before I ask you a question, I just want to tell you a little story. So I came back from Afghanistan in 2008. In 2009, I get, it's my final 16 months in the military. I'm a sergeant major, highly decorated warrior. And a friend of mine, I was stationed at Fort Monmouth, New Jersey. And a friend of mine was an attorney and had some investment in racehorses. So he's like, hey, I want to take you somewhere this afternoon. He takes me to Colts Neck, New Jersey, and in their stables there. I didn't even realize they were breeding and training horses in New Jersey, of all things. And I just remember walking around the stables and just looking at these animals. And I remember one of these thoroughbreds, Mike, he looked at me and I was like, I think this animal wants to kill me. And it was, and you just see the power and the grace. And I came, and I've been around horses, partially my entire life, but I came back from there and I was just like, wow. And then the next thing I was like, how does somebody ride this animal and control it? It was just so enlightening and so empowering. And what you do is absolutely amazing. I'd rather go back to combat than do what you do. So Mike, it's obviously you had a passion for the sport. You grew up around it. It's a passion that drives us to amazing moments and accomplishments. But you said you also had to deal through some tougher times. And can you share with us like what you were facing when you faced adversity and a challenge and what your techniques were to overcome it?
Well, first of all, thank you for your service. I didn't know that about you. I got to talk to you a little more about that.
Thanks, Mike.
First and foremost, the challenges and again, they could be, for me, they were, you name it, I've probably gone through it just because I've been doing this for so long, and it's just part of life and part of growing up. From learning how to handle success early on, is a challenge. It can lead you down, although it's a wonderful thing, it could certainly lead you down a lot of dark roads, man, if you don't watch it. So that's one thing you got to learn and go through as a young athlete, being successful early on. And then along comes injuries. In this sport or in any sport, you're going to have injuries. But can you imagine when you go down in a horse race and you got 10 others following you? A lot of times they're pretty, well, they could be pretty career-ending pretty quick. So going through 1998, I would have to say that I was going into 1998 probably going to have the best year I've ever had as a rider. I mean, I was on the verge of breaking just about every record. And then that summer of 1998, upstate New York in Saratoga, I went down. I just won the Travers the day before on a horse called Coronado's Quest, which is a big race, upstate New York in Saratoga. It's probably their signature race for the meet. And the next day, just riding an allowance race, the last race on Sunday, wind up getting pushed into the inside hedge on the turf course, and she did a somersault, and I flipped off and landed sitting down, and she landed on top of me, and I crushed T12, L3, broke both my heels. I was in pretty bad shape. I was out about, I guess I was out just a little under a year that I was out, but I remember being in intensive care, them telling me that, and this was in 1998, telling me my riding career is pretty much over. So I refused I refused to hear that part anyway, and thinking that I could, I'll be back in a couple of months. You don't know me, but of course it was a whole lot seriouser than I anticipated. Although I was in a lot of pain, I've always thought I was going to make it back pretty quick, and had a great doctor that I wind up going with. His name was Dr. Carl, and he was just a great guy, and he was I don't know, he understood where I was at and what I was thinking, what I was feeling, and knew that I wanted to make it back. And he said, listen, this could happen. It's going to take a lot of time and a lot of work, but you can do this. And I was determined to do it, and made it through that. Probably came back about 4 or 5 months too early, wanting to get back as quick as I wanted to. And that kind of set me back a bit. But once I got through that, man, it just started back all over again. You basically got to start all over again. But I'd been there before, and I'd done it before, and I was determined to do it again. I actually moved I was based out of New York at the time, and moved out to California and started fresh, just to start fresh again, where I didn't feel anybody owed me, or I owed no one else. There was no chip on my shoulder or hard feelings. It was just a brand new start, and it really worked out for me. And it's just amazing what a great horse can do for you. I always thought at the time, I said, I'm just one good horse away from getting back. And before you know it, I stumbled upon a mare called a Zeri, who went on to win the Breeders' Cup at the end of the year, and really got me going again. And that's the wonderful thing about my sport. These horses are just amazing. Not only are they beautiful and fun to be around, and of course fun to ride, they can turn not only one man's career around, but everyone involved. It could be anywhere up to 7 to 8 different people that are involved in one horse, and nowadays even more. And it's amazing what a horse can do.
Mike, I saw Seabiscuit. I've seen Secretariat. I want to know when they're making the movie about you and that return, because that is an incredible story. And look, that can be the difference sometimes, especially for the audience. Anyone who's experienced a major injury, a lot of thoughts go through your head, right? A lot of things go through your head about coming back, desire, and then there's setbacks, like you said. And that is probably one of the major things that sets you apart. And I'm sure it made, the culmination with the Triple Crown, the all-time win leader, even that much more sweeter. But the reason I asked that question, the reason we bring it up and JB asked that question, is because we want the audience to know that there is no linear path to success, right? There's ups, there's downs, there's massive adversity, right? Like I just don't know of any career where someone started and won and that was it, and they did everything perfectly. It's often these moments of adversity that create the champion, right? That harness the champion. I want to transfer. You just talked about, the thoroughbreds. One of the aspects of success we talk about on the show is the importance of trust in our relationships, and how trust is really the foundation of any successful team or environment. And you mentioned this, how do you apply that to your teams? You just said it, there could be 7, 8, 9 more people working on a horse. And how do you develop that trust with a thoroughbred? Like, JB's story was a perfect example of that. I mean, these animals are powerful. They're powerful, and they are beings. That's the other thing too. I think people miss that when they look at your sport of, the connection that has to take place between the jockey and the thoroughbred, and that these are living, breathing creatures. They're beings. They have a soul, and you have to tap into that. How do you do that? How do you build a trust with a thoroughbred like that?
I should have told JB, the safest part of being around a horse is on their back. If you could just stay, if you could just stay on their back, man, you're gonna always be safe. But you got to stay up there.
Yeah.
Sometimes they can get you when you're on the ground, or you can try and run away from them, but they'll catch you pretty quick. I've always thought the safest place was on a horse's back. But I don't know what it is about me and a horse. I mean, you see some people with animals, period. They just have a way of being comfortable around them and getting along with them. Some people are great with dogs. You'll see somebody come in and just horrified of your dog or something, and your dog reacts to it. You see some people just walk in and act like they're not even there, and your dog just falls in love with them. It's something about a horse. I don't know. I've just never been. Again, I respect what can happen around a horse and what can happen during a race. And that part is scary, to be honest with you. But as far as a horse is concerned, I just melt when I get on top of them. I just become one of them, and I just seem to get along with the majority of them anyway. They're like people. You're not going to get along with every single one of them, but for the most part, I just I'm not. It's kind of like meeting people when you walk into a restaurant or a bar or something. I mean, you're not going to get along with everybody in there, but if you're a good people person, you're going to get along with most of them. And I'm pretty, I trust you with all I got when I first meet you. Then you got to show me if rather I'm right or I'm wrong as it goes. But just kind of that way. I think I was brought up that way, raised that way. And I start out with a whole lot of trust. And a lot of times it's not the, not necessarily a good thing to do, but I'll give it to you until you show me different anyway.
Mike, you talked about a few things there, and I was, taking notes here. And obviously, you're extremely humble, which I think that's so important to be as an athlete, as a coach, as a leader. We can allow, we want to have pride, but we don't want to let that pride take over us. And I think you've done just a wonderful job of talking that humility. And the other thing that you talk about is the respect you have for everybody else around, the people cleaning the stalls, taking care of the horse, the respect for the animal itself. I just think that's so important that everybody does that. When I worked in, Mike, I'll tell you this story, you'll like it. When I worked in the National Hockey League and we were trading for a player, the first thing I did is I would call the equipment manager of that team he was coming from, because I wanted to see, how did he treat the equipment manager? How did he treat the training staff? And they tell you right away, oh my gosh, this guy complains, or they'll be like, JB, the best guy ever, looks after us, everything else we need. Never complains. And I think sometimes that, when we rise to this greatness, we can forget about that goodness, and it's so important to continue to have that. And I'm going to just follow. Amen. I'm just going to follow up with a question. So, we always talk about athletes like getting in the zone, and athletes, especially younger athletes, are like, how do I get into the zone, Lee? How do I get into the zone, JB? Like, we can sprinkle magic dust on them. and we, from being an elite athlete yourself, being in the zone is a real thing. And it takes a lot to get into the zone: mental toughness, physical toughness. It takes focus, practice, skills, great attitude, all that. So maybe you can talk to us about, things you did to get in the moment as you were, navigating these gracious animals around the track. What did you do to prepare yourself?
Well, I always start out with a prayer, to be honest.
I love it.
I love it. I'm a man of a big belief, and
I love it.
I love to start out with the prayer and put it in God's hands, and I've done all the work. I know I have. I've put in years and time, and it's all there. What you got to understand is people try to act like the big moment. They try to play it down, is what a lot of people do. Oh, this is just another race. But it's really not. And no matter how much you tell yourself, if you're playing the Super Bowl, this is just another game. It's not just another game. It's the Super Bowl, man. And if you don't look at it that way, well, you ain't ready, man. I mean, to me, if you ain't nervous, you ain't ready. But it's how you use that energy. That energy can be very dangerous, man. It could speed everything up and just wreck the whole afternoon. But if you learn how to just focus, man, and harness that nervous energy, man, you can use it for some wonderful, great things, man. Some great moments, man. It'll give you strength, endurance, power, man. It'll do so much for you, but you got to learn to slow it down. That's the key is learn to slow that energy down. The game's fast enough as it is. You're not going to change the speed of the game. You just got to learn to slow it down in your head, not outside of your head.
I love it.
That makes any sense. Yeah.
No, it makes perfect sense. I know Lee from playing and coaching, me from, the military. That's it. We try to just, sometimes can control the moment and control what you can't control. And the other thing I like what you said, Mike, is, I'm a big believer that you need to positively lift your talent. I think sometimes athletes, business professionals, they're smashing their talent down. Well, you can't do this or you can't do that. I don't think that's the way to do it, especially when, you put in your work. When you use that energy, that motivation to to lift yourself to victory. And I love what you said. It is a big moment. Realize it's a big moment, and let's go. It's time to get it done. I love it.
Yeah, and JB, if I can comment on that too, Mike, I think you're actually bringing up a great point. That look, being humble is a great quality in a lot of times, but when you're going for something, I talk about it when I'm coaching a team. If we're going for a title, I've been in locker rooms where we can't talk about that. And I go, why can we not talk about the goal? Well, we might lose it if we talk about it. I was like, you're going to lose it if you don't talk about it. Like you got to know what you're doing. Like I always say this athletically, and this goes from what you do to other sports and everything. Look, if you have a goal, the risk is you're risking pain of not winning, right? If you talk about it, but you're not going to win it if you don't talk about it, right? That's what really separates is there's a lack of fear of failure of, I might lose, but I got to try it. Right. And again, going back to your early life, the story, I'm going to do that. I'm going to do that. Right. You skipped over any type of overwhelming fear that you can't do it. You just said, I'm going to do that. And I'm sure there was times along the way where maybe it was questioned, but the idea is it didn't stop you. That is a massive separator that I don't think people know about of top great performers and then just average performers. It's that ability to say, I'm going to do it. Go ahead.
You gotta be inwardly confident. You don't have to necessarily be outwardly confident. I mean,
Right.
Sometimes people are outwardly confident, but they're not confident inside. It starts inside, man. And humble and kind is a wonderful thing, and it's what you're supposed to be. There's a great country song that Tim McGraw sings. Always be humble and kind. But that's before and after. When I'm playing that game, and it's God gave me the ability, gave me those emotions, that drive to do what I need to do, and then you be a humble winner and a gracious loser afterwards.
Right. Yeah. There's a great poem that I love. It's called "If" by Rudyard Kipling, and I have it on my wall, and it describes everything that you said. I mean, I'm looking at it. I have a huge poster on my wall.
Yeah.
with that poem, and what it talks about, Mike, is what you're talking about. And not to read the poem, but like there's things in there like if you can meet a king and meet a jester and treat them the same, if you can meet victory and defeat and treat them the same, you're a man, right? Like or a woman, right? In this case, it was written a long time ago. But my point is that it talks about that you have to be able to handle all these situations evenly. My other favorite one is if you can keep an even mind when everyone's blaming you. Right. And still treat them well. Like, that's what makes you a great human being. Like you are absolutely, it is. It takes practice. Like that's the other thing that I want to tap on with what you're saying about mental toughness and focus and being in the moment is that it takes practice. And even when you think you got it, you can lose it. It's an ongoing battle, right?
I've always,
there's
a verse somewhere in the Bible, someone else's opinion is really none of my business.
Right.
And sometimes that's a good thing, but you got to learn to, again, people aren't, it's great reading the good things, man. But if you get to reading it, start reading some of the bad things or some of the bad things someone's saying about you or blaming you, or you got to learn to just kind of stay even keel and don't let the highs get too high and the lows get too low, which is a common saying, but it's really true. You just got to learn to handle it. As long as I'm proud of myself and I know that God's proud of me, then that's all that matters to me.
No, that's exactly right. Mike, we talk about, riding the wave. And if you're surfing that wave, you have to have respect for the water and you got to ride it up and you got to ride it down. Ride it down. Exactly. I think I read something that Joel Osteen, he doesn't read anything negative about himself. When people say that, I love it. Somebody says something negative, he doesn't read it. Mike, you're in your 50s. I'm in my 50s. You look great. I'm still trying to stay after it. How have you managed that longevity of your career now, both physically and mentally? I think that's just as important. What are the things that you've done for yourself?
If I did, early on in life, in my career, a bit different for jockeys than I would say some other sports. A lot of sports, you want to hit the gym and the weight room and really work out. there was a kind of a stigma back in the day where people thought that, well, if you worked out, you're going to get too heavy, you're going to get too big to ride. Well, I never really believed in that. I think if you want to get big, you certainly got to work out to get big, and you got to eat, to get big. You got to really, but you can train and really, you might gain a little, you're certainly going to gain more muscle, which they say muscle is heavier than fat, but you also, you'll gain stamina, endurance, and you learn how to train. And I really got into that early on, to physical fitness at a young age. Instead of going out with my buddies and playing golf and drinking beer and hanging out all day on our days off, I hit the gym. In my early 20s, I started, and I was smart enough to realize that I didn't know what I was doing. But I was watching some of these personal trainers in there and really, really caught on to that. So once I could start affording one, I hired personal trainers, and I've actually had two of them that have worked for me, one over 20 years and the other one for about 14 and a half years, who I'm going to see here right after this interview.
Like it.
And I just made it a way of life. So I train on my days off, when I'm on vacation, and then I take an hour out of each morning just for myself, no matter where we're at. And I train, man. I have to train. And that's what keeps me going. It's starting to pay off in my later years in life. So I'm at the age of 55 right now, or 56. I don't even really want to say. on my trainers' charts, who have trained me for so long, other than I don't lift as much as I used to, I'm still right on where I was in my 30s. It's the body's amazing, man. If you'll take care of it and you'll train it, it'll stay there. It's when you stop training and stop, you're not. Listen, I take my time, and I do have moments where I go out and I have fun. I enjoy my life, but I make sure that there's about an hour almost of every day that I do something physical.
I love it. We have an old military saying, a good day starts with good physical training. So I think that's so important to do, Mike. And it's so great that you're continuing to do that. Besides that physical fitness part, Mike, and I know you're in your spirit, in your faith, I am too. So is Lee. I think that's so important. What do you do for that mental side and emotional side of yourself too?
I pray constantly, always. I'm always having a conversation with God. I mean, my Lord and Savior. I don't stop. I guarantee. I mean, even as we're speaking, I ask for wisdom. Give me the words. Give me this. Give me that. I never stop praying. I get up in the morning. I say my prayer. Most people get up in the morning. They'll say their prayer, and they'll say a prayer at night. But in the middle, you can get. That's where you get lost, and of course, that's where I never stop. I just throughout the day, I'm always praying, always talking, just having a normal conversation with God, and it gets me where I need to be.
I love it. It's beautiful.
I'll follow up on that too, Mike, because I can tell you right now that there are people out there that will hear you say that, and they may roll their eyes, or they'll go, I don't do that. It's not my thing. And one of the things I've started to talk about with young athletes is that faith, however you want to define that, is insanely important. Right now, again, you have a faith in God, and that's wonderful, right? And I tell athletes all the time, you have to have faith in something, or else what's the point? You know what I mean? And it is just so important to build faith within yourself. And again, there's literally an infinite way to define that word. Some define it through the Bible, some define it in other ways, but having it is very important. I can't imagine finding success in a faithless environment or a faithless mentality, right? Do you want to comment on that? Sorry.
Yeah, I could lead you. That's when you start going down the wrong roads.
Right.
Success is again, we were talking about that earlier. When you're young, you don't know how to handle it and how to channel it, and how to be grateful for it and thankful for it. It can take you to a lot of bad places.
Right. And just being grateful for what you have. I don't usually talk about this, but every night before I go to bed, sometimes I don't even know who I'm talking to, but I say, hey, thank you for my life. Thank you for my wife. Thank you for my children. Just every night, just to end the day on hey, look, thank you. I'm really blessed to have, my brain and to have the things that I do. And I start the day like that too sometimes, because that's just a much better way of focusing on my back pain or something like that. But it's having faith.
We're a lot alike.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Yeah. No, listen, I look up to you with what you've been through much more than what I've been through. I just got cross-checked in the back a lot growing up because that was allowed. But my point is this: athletes, coaches, don't shun faith. Right. You don't have to go specific with anybody on what their faith is or why they practice what they practice.
Yeah,
but
whatever it is.
Yeah. The inclusion of it's very important. I know like, look, JB has worked with a lot of pro athletes, and I think JB, it would shock a lot of the audience how much faith some of these top athletes have. I mean, we talk about one all the time who's incredibly religious, right? And again, you don't have to broadcast it, and there's nothing wrong if you want to, but having it is just so important. I just wanted to make that point.
Thank you.
Yeah, no. Thank you, Mike, for being open and honest about that. We don't do that enough as a society to just discuss these types of things. Mike, I am going to throw you a wild. Oh, go ahead, JB. I apologize.
No, I was just going to say, for the young athletes listening to this, it's okay to have faith. Totally. If your buddy doesn't have faith, it's okay. You can keep it to yourself, play it close to your vest. It's okay. And Lee and Mike, you both know that there's a lot of opportunities for athletes, especially in the high school, prep school, college. This Fellowship of Christian Athletes is one of them. I know my son, did that all the way through college. There's a lot of opportunities for, athletes to get together in small groups and continue to do this. So it's a good thing. And you're exactly right, Lee. There are plenty of top athletes that really keep their religious faith close to themselves. And that's a wonderful thing. Back to you, Lee.
No, thanks, JB. It's a powerful force for good. Faith. So Mike, I'm going to throw it's not a curveball question, but I didn't prepare you for this one, but I did want to ask you this. It came to me while we were on the episode here. Look, you're the greatest at all time in your sport. I'm thinking to myself, how often am I going to have the greatest of all time of a sport sitting in front of me, being so gracious, taking some time with us? So the question I have for you is, what is the question that nobody asks you that you wish they would? And again, I'm guessing when the media deals with you, a lot of it's the triple. How did that feel to win the Triple Crown? Yeah, I'm sure, I'm sure it felt amazing, but you've been asked that 100 times, right? You've been asked that. What is the question no one's asking you that you wish they would about life, your sport, or anything in between?
That's a great question. It really is. I'm trying to think of that's hard to say, because I mean, you even today you covered a lot of, you actually guys have covered a lot of things that they don't ask me. That's off my faith and belief. I just how important. Again, we talked about early on how everything and everyone is so important in your climb to wherever it is you want to go. Whether it be your family, friends, the hot walker that walks that horse, the groom, the gallop boy, people behind the scenes that don't get any of the credit. Trainer and the owner, you hear a lot about the jockey, but you don't hear about everybody else that put in all the hard work and what it means to them. Questions like that, the behind the scenes, the other people, not about me. I mean, I guess questions about me, I guess pretty much have been asked, but it's all the other people I like to talk about that really makes you become who you are and get to the places you're wanting to get in life. There's a whole lot of people involved, and you got to respect everyone, and they're all as important as the other. You're just a piece. I got to be the guy who put the weight on Justify's back, but what about that groom that took care of him night and day, every day? That work to me is a whole lot harder than the work that I had to put on him. I was only sitting up there, not only 2 minutes most of the time. So, he was with him for hours, or she was with him for hours. So the behind the scene people is questions I like to answer about them and how great they are. You gotta give them the respect and bring them up and talk about them every now and then, because they don't ever get that opportunity to be in the limelight.
Love it. I love it. Mike, that's that, again, that's that humility part we try to, always tell always tell athletes or business people that continue to, sometimes when we rise, everybody's serving us. And what we really should do is take that pyramid and flip it upside down, and we should
There you
serve
go.
others. The
Exactly.
higher we climb, the more we should serve. And, the best leaders, the best athletes, that's what they do. They understand that's that servant leadership. And I think sometimes, everything's based around that sports center moment. But it's all those other things that builds that foundation of success. Mike, I love everything you say. It's just, it's amazing. And I do hope they do a movie about you someday. Seriously, this is amazing.
Yeah, I don't know who would get to play me, man.
Tom Cruise will play. He'll love that. That's how he works.
No, oh yeah.
Oh, he would. You know what? He would. You know what? He would probably go and try to. He would probably want to ride the horse himself. Right. Exactly.
That's how he would. He wants to fly jets, and he wants to ride.
Probably get it done too.
Yeah. No. Yeah. Because he's crazy. So he would absolutely do it.
I would say that's an easy stunt for him, but that would not be fair to anybody that does what you do, Mike. It's not easy at all. And just to pull a thread on that a little bit more, Mike, it's a phenomenal answer. And the truth is this, and we talk about this on the show all the time. No successful person was successful by themselves. Nobody. And every successful person that we talk to says that, right? You can bring yourself down on your own. People can bring yourself down on your own with bad internal dialogue and being crappy to people. But I love what you said, because it truly is a village to make successes happen. And look, we live in this society right now where human highlight reels are a daily occurrence. And look, the glory that you've achieved, which you've totally earned, right? It's not just you, right? As you said, it's everyone that you met along the way, the adversity, the trainers, the people that take care of the horses, that, it truly is a team effort, and again, when it's so easy for people to look at thoroughbred racing and just go, oh, yeah, it's a horse and a guy. It's just so much more than that, right? It's same thing with car racing, right? It's a guy driving a car. That is not what it is. It is not what it is. And I think that the best athletes are also often the best teammates, and they understand that the people around them that are supporting them have to be there, and that ability to work together and believe in each other. Again, something we do not focus on enough here. And your answer emulates that. It's something that if you're listening to this show and you want to be great, you got to be part of a great team. You got to surround yourself with great people. And
there's something to that. What your mom used to tell you when you was young, man, be careful who you surround yourself with. Really, it's really true. You keep yourself surrounded with the right people, you can go a long way. But it's not only you by yourself.
Absolutely. That's true in family life and true in sports. So, Mike, last question for me. Our channel Grit is all about breaking the stigma surrounding mental health and mental fitness in sport. We talked about this a little bit, but what does mental fitness mean for you? How do you practice it and utilize it in your daily life?
Well, I mean, mental fitness is tough because there's so many different things can bring you down and make you. I mean, I got to tell myself every day what that I know what I'm doing, or somewhat anyway. There's times where I don't believe in myself. You go out. Look, in my sport, if you win 20% of the time, you're doing pretty good. You're probably one of the top guys if you're winning 20% of the time. So that means you're losing a whole lot more than you're winning. So you certainly got to learn to handle adversity. Use it to your advantage. I've never been one that wanted to prove someone wrong. I've always been, if things didn't go right, I prayed about it. It was for a reason. I wasn't ready for it, or there was a reason that happened. It wasn't my turn. It was just, whatever it was. I've just learned to handle adversity and not let it bring me down. And it's hard to do. It's not easy. I can honestly tell you, there's been times where, I thought I did a good job and no one else did. And I take it to heart because I know how many people were involved. When I lose a race, man, it's not. I don't feel bad for myself, man. I feel bad for everyone involved. I mean, and the pressure. When I feel pressure, it's because everyone. I know how many people are involved. And I know the time that they've spent to get to where they're at with this horse or this moment. So you got to learn to handle the highs are easy to handle. Look, everybody can be happy when you win, man. But it's learning to handle situations that aren't so aren't so comfortable or easy to handle. When I learn more from a guy when he doesn't win than when he wins. To myself, I learn more from people when they're not doing so good, or it didn't happen, or they made a mistake, or something happens. I mean, there's been times, I a lot of times you don't ride the perfect race, and it's my fault, but you got to learn how to handle that and bounce back from it. You got to learn to put it behind you and use it to help you.
No, Mike, that's exactly right. Because, when you're out there racing, there's, 10 or 12 or 15 other riders that have a vote in what happens to you. So
Yeah.
you have to just take care of yourself. Mike, I love what you said about you're not trying to prove it to somebody else. Because I think a lot of times athletes that we talk to, they're like, I want to prove it to my coach, or I got to prove it to my dad. And I'm just like, just prove it to yourself.
Right.
Just prove it to yourself. And I think
I'm my own worst critic. I'm harder on myself than anybody could be. Trust me.
Yeah. So I think sometimes we put these external pressures on there because we want to be like, I showed you, like, don't worry about that. Go out there and exactly do the best you can. Prepare, practice, get yourself focused and ready. And the other thing I love what you talked about, and these young athletes should listen to this, is you said, hey, in your early 20s, like when on your day off, guys are playing golf, maybe having a few beers, you're like, no, I'm going to the gym and I'm starting my day with the gym. And regardless if they want to or not, that's what you're doing. And I think that's so important to do that, because a lot of times in sports and you're extremely talented. People just live on that talent. And they don't continue to say, well, I have to continue to nurture that talent. I have to continue to work on that talent. I didn't survive 26 years in the military by just having, 4 good years. So I had to continue to work at it every single day. And so I think that's so important. I love what you said. I love everything you said, Mike. You're an inspiration to everyone. I think it's so good that you start your day with faith and focus. And Mike, I just want to ask you this question. I don't know it. I don't know how it works. How does the mentorship program work for an up and coming jockey? Is there a program for mentorship? Do people reach out to you, or how? I mean, I know because it's kind of a dog eat dog. You're all racing against each other, but maybe the young jockey's like, hey, Mike, how would you have handled this? Does that happen?
Sure.
Okay.
It does. I wish there was a program, for it, but I tell you, you'd be surprised I think most people who are successful at life, you want to share it, and it's not meant just for you and you to hold it all inside, and just you and you only. It's meant to give back. And a lot of great riders. I mean, I was so blessed to have so many mentors growing up, that really helped me out in my career, not only in teaching me different techniques and things and riding, but in life period. So many life lessons that you learn from watching these older riders, and they come to you. And I let myself, I break the ice right away. I most of the time, if there's a young rider in the jockey room that just started out, I'll approach them just to let them know, hey, you ever want to talk about something?
Beautiful.
You got a question, man? Come see me, man. I'm always right here. I said, if I'm in a bad mood, or I'm a little mad about a race or something like that, just wait 5 more seconds. I'll get over it pretty quick, and then come and see me. But
I love it.
But I'm always available, day or night. Here's my number, man. Call me if you ever need me. And it helps them out a lot, So I've been able to mentor quite a few young guys. One of my little mentors right now, he's like my little brother, is a little kid named Drayden Van Dyke, who's here riding in California, and he's doing really well. And it's fun trying to be a part of him and allowing me to be a part of him. I'm kind of like his big brother, or it's kind of a father figure to him. And it means a lot to me. It means probably more to me than it means to him.
Look, let's just say this, man. Giving back is such a gift. It doesn't really even matter the industry, right? Like any chance any of you have to give back, and this goes for even younger athletes to the younger athletes, right? The ability to give back, give thanks and give back is really a gift. And not only that, it makes you feel great. I think that's one of the things people don't realize. It makes
really
you feel
does.
wonderful. Yeah. Especially when you have the
I
knowledge.
actually believe it feels better.
Yeah.
Yeah. It really does.
But,
no, I
think of it, Lee. Lee, think of it. You know, here's Mike Smith, the GOAT, and he walks into the team room there and sees a young jockey and says, "Hey, here's my number." Like that young man is probably like, or woman is probably like, "Wow." Right. Like just the weight taken off that person to do that. And I just think, you know, that's just so amazing. And I've seen other star athletes do it. I've seen Sidney Crosby and you know, a young rookie. He's like, "Here, put the rookie next to me, not across the locker room." Right. I think that's just that's so important to do. That was beautiful. Go ahead, Lee.
No, I appreciate you putting that in. And, you know, Mike, again, just one last echo of something you said, you know, for our audience is, you know, the fear of failure can keep you from trying things where you might fall, but the true measure of a human being is how you react to falling, right? Like, do you get back up? You know, how do you respond to that failure? And I think that's just something from the stigma of mental health side. We just kind of miss as a society that the fear stops us from trying. And through your entire story, kind of rounding this episode out, you just look, I'm sure you've experienced fear, but it never stopped you from doing what you believed you could do. Right. And then you gave several examples of falling and how you got back up. And that's really the measure of a human being.
Yeah, I totally agree. You know, it's through failure that you learn. They're stepping stones, man. That's what gets you up on top of where you're at. Is all those stepping stones, all those failures and you know, defeats that they'll get you finally to the very top. You know, when you're trying to help a younger person now, well, you know, it's just because you know you've gone through some. You don't want them to trip over some of them stones, man. You want them just to step right up on top. But you know, that's what builds everybody. It's what builds character, man.
And sometimes you have to let them step on the stones.
They got to trip over them, man.
Yeah. Well, look, I'll round this out by saying this. There's a lot of talk about Tom Brady and his age, but maybe he should be giving you a call. Yeah, no, you are the one that we should be talking about. I do love Tom Brady. I'm not from the area, but I mean, how can you not enjoy that? But you are also greatness, sir.
You're from Philadelphia. You don't love Tom Brady.
No, I did not grow up loving Tom Brady. I respect Tom Brady and what he's accomplished. I'll put it that way. But Mike, look, got to thank you again for just giving us some time today and really.
I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I did too, man. It was incredibly insightful and
incredible, Mike.
Yeah, I do hope we asked you the questions you don't normally get asked. So that's our goal.
I hope to get the opportunity to meet you both in person and sit down and have a conversation with you guys, man. I would
love that.
Off camera, I'd really love to get to know you both, man. So thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it.
I will take you up on that, Mike. And I appreciate that. I always like to get out of the East Coast. Yes, sir. All right. Well, that's going to do it for this episode of Win Championship Trades for Life, which is powered by Pivotal Moments. Once again, you can learn more about the organization and our channel Grit at pivotalmoments.org, and you can get more inspirational, entertaining, and educational content there. For Mike Smith and JB Spizo, I'm Lee Elias. Thanks so much for joining us. Make sure to keep an eye out for more episodes soon, wherever podcasts can be heard. Thanks so much for listening, and we'll see you next time on Win.